Adam, kick us off here with what the CEO of Caesars had to say.
What I found most interesting about this story that came out of Mike Mazzio's trip to East Coast Gaming Congress a couple of weeks ago is that we don't often hear the CEOs of the major gaming companies talk about responsible gambling in the way that Tom Reeg did at this conference. So let's start out with the quote that came out of Atlantic City, directly from Tom Reeg's speech here. Responsible gaming is not just a PR problem that we throw some money at and hope it goes away. This is something that as gaming becomes more and more a part of daily life and people's lives that don't gamble. That's a new development. And in part, he's talking about this in response to the letter that Senator Richard Blumenthal sent out asking gaming operators about the responsible gaming practices. And also, he discussed the fact that he sees a lot of sports betting ads on television, much the same as everybody else sees a lot of sports betting ads on television. Now, important context to that. Caesars notably pulled back on its marketing quite a while ago, right? They went very heavy in the early days of New York more than a couple of years ago, and they have pulled back. You do not see Matt's friend JB Smoove.
I was about to say, Adam, much to our dismay, right? I mean, like a podcast favorite in JB Smoove, right?
JB is gone. Carl's not around anymore. We don't even get Cooper Manning.
I was going to say, right? We don't see the Mannings. Yeah, where the hell are the Mannings? Yeah.
What happened to Cooper? you don't ever see him on an Omaha podcast. Cooper's just gone. So Caesars has pulled back a lot on all of its celebrity push and marketing. But more importantly, to the quote that Tom Reeg was talking about, I think that part about how it's affecting the lives of people who are not directly involved in gambling is notable in terms of what he expressed overall, which is the concern that federal regulation could be somewhere out there on the horizon for sports betting, for iGaming, when it comes to how people are feeling about not only the responsible gambling concerns they're hearing, but also that marketing advertising blitz that has been out there. Now, those of us who have been in and around the industry for a while, we understand that responsible gambling concerns have always touched people who are not directly involved. That is the central tenet behind the idea of how gambling addiction works, is that this ultimately has effects on loved ones, on families, on friends, on jobs. However, it's getting attention in a much different way now in the legal sports betting era, with so much push out there for sports betting operators. And of course, as we continue on here, as we see companies pushing for iGaming expansion as well. And I think it also stands in stark contrast to what we've seen from some other CEOs recently, where the quotes haven't been really, I think, as prescient in a way that Tom Reeg's was. So, Matt, I'm curious what you think. You've obviously lived in Las Vegas a long time. You've been involved in these industries for a long time. I just found those comments very interesting.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the iGaming part of this, Adam, because I'm glad that we are kind of laying the groundwork for all this stuff now. We know maybe not in the very near future. I think you and I both know how this works. Sometimes it's just a slow process, but it eventually gets there. There will be iGaming expansion, right? Like we are aware that whether it's 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, there will be iGaming expansion. And one of the things about sports betting and iGaming that do kind of differ a little bit with all of that, Adam, is that, sports only happen when sports happen, right? Like sports are not happening 24/7, at least not the popular sports in the United States. Like I suppose if you wanted to, you could find your fix with cricket and darts and whatever and all the stuff that's going on all over the world. But, for the vast majority of bettors out there, games start at 7 Eastern and, they end at some point, and your window of when you can actually be participating in all of this is finite, as to where iGaming, right, is always on. You can literally sit there and you could be playing slot machines or craps or blackjack or whatever it is at any hour of the day, all the day long, and whatever. And so I'm glad that we're kind of getting out in front of the responsible gaming stuff from a baseline standpoint. And for me, hearing those comments, I'm like, is this really addressed to today, or is this kind of addressed more down the line and towards the future? And honestly, it doesn't matter either way, right? I mean, as long as it is, and long as whether it's for today or whether it's for the future, it's a good thing regardless. And so I'm kind of in on all of this. I think it's more of a long-term play.
Understood in that regard. From Caesars' perspective also, I think that they see that this is something that they, as a legacy casino operator, probably understand and feel on a different level than some of the newer operators into the space, right? They've been dealing with this for a long time now. We do have the new Responsible Gambling Alliance that was formed by a number of operators, notably Caesars not part of that one, but doesn't mean they're any less invested in alignment when it comes to self-regulation from the industry. And we've had a lot of discussions on this podcast about what self-regulation looks like. And I think the point when it comes to what we've seen in Congress with Paul Tonko's bills that have been introduced but haven't gone anywhere is that Paul Tonko has discussed the fact that he sees these bills as starting points. However, I think he's gone too far in some of what he sets as the parameters for starting points, but they are at least the sort of bell that has been sounded to say there should be discussions from those who know better, like casino operators, like sports betting operators. There should be discussion on that level about what reasonable self-regulation looks like before the discussion gets away from you, before the discussion gets out of your control. Because I was actually just watching the White House Correspondents' Dinner set that Colin Jost did recently. And he brought up the idea of, we hear so much when it comes to the election, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? And his joke was, of course we are. We have online sports betting now. The narrative is out there, right? And the narrative is running to the point where it might not be able to be so easily controlled in the long run. It might be beyond that point already, frankly, when it comes to all the Ohtani stuff that we're going to get into here in a minute. But I do like the fact that the discussion was at least raised and hopefully continued.
A couple of things to talk about that just kind of come off of this discussion here, Adam. Like you and the team, how much do y'all love saying ECGC when y'all are like talking about the East Coast Gaming Conference? Like ECGC has to just be something amongst y'all that is a thing now, right?
ECGC, easy peasy. Like it just kind of rolls together,
Yeah, it has to be that. And then the other thing is JB Smoove. I will say this as we tip our hat to the end of Curb Your Enthusiasm. I assume you are a Curb Your Enthusiasm watcher. It seems like you would be, but maybe I'm jumping the gun here.
I have to be honest, I am so far behind on pop culture in general that I am fully aware of Curb. I have seen Curb. I am not as dedicated of a watcher as I know a lot of people are. However, it's not like we've lost our JB Smoove fix. He was on those AT&T ads during the NCAA tournament, and I have to say, big letdown from being Caesar.
What I was going to say is like if I don't get him in the Caesars commercials, getting him in that environment in Curb Your Enthusiasm, Adam, as you end up catching up on this show at some point down the line, you will see as brilliant a writer as Larry David is and how he's able to connect these weird stories together and all these other, you can tell that JB Smoove's character, he is just winging it. Like he is literally like whatever's going on, he's just saying whatever comes to his brain in this crazy like comedic thing that's going on. And like you even catch every now and then like Larry David or Jeff, like they are genuinely laughing. You can tell it's like not a fake laugh. Like they're like genuinely laughing because they had no idea he was going to say what he said. And then it just came out and there's like, that's funny. Like you're just a funny dude.
Matthew, I cannot believe that you, Matt Brown, would connect to someone who's just winging it and coming up with stuff off the top of their head and loving the good stuff that comes out.
Oh, it's so good.